Before we begin, I would like to let you guys know that whatever information that we are sharing here is according to our personal experience and personal learnings that we have got from our Guru Sri Shivananda. And whatever information or whatever concepts that we are giving here is entirely based upon our personal experience. We have learned a few things under our Guru over the course of few years, and we are just trying to share them over here so that it might help someone. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome back to another episode in GoMoksh Spirituality series. In this video, we'll talk about different characteristics of the lokas or different characteristics of the beings that are there in different lokas, right? So we have just basically on a surface level, we have touched upon the names of these lokas in the previous video. Now we are going to delve a little bit deeper into the characteristics of the beings that are populated in these lokas. The reason why I am doing this video is like when we discuss about Siddhacharam in the next video, the concept of going inward in the Siddha Philosophy, it will talk about how you associate the macrocosm, that is the Brahmand, within you. Right? So when we talk about that concept, to make people understand about how the thought process of a certain person will affect their spiritual journey, I am talking about the characteristics of these lokas, because in Siddhacharam we can also trace the 14 lokas inside a human body. Right? That is what is going inward means actually. So let's get started with the lower 7 lokas, and the first one of that is Atala Loka. This is the one that is very close to the earth plane right now, the Bhuloka, and the immediate one below it is called the Atala Loka. And the characteristics of the beings that are there or populated in this loka are they are always lustful, and they're always scandalous. They're always driven by the sensual pleasures, and they're always trying to seek the sensual pleasures. So that is the main characteristic of this loka. And the next one is the Vitala Loka. So here in Vitala Loka, characteristics of the people are they are materialistically successful, but they refuse to acknowledge that there is certain spirituality associated with the soul, and they don't even recognize that such thing exists in the first place. So that is the characteristic of the Vitala Loka people. Like for example, they might be well off, very prosperous and everything. They might be doing good deeds or bad deeds or whatever. But the thing is, like when we talk about some spiritual concepts or anything like that, they'll just dismiss it like that, and they'll refuse to believe, and they will even argue that no such thing exists. We might be seeing a lot of people with this kind of characteristic. It's just that it is not wrong or anything. It's just that their consciousness is vibrating at a certain frequency where it is influenced by the characteristics of that particular realm. Like I've mentioned in the previous video, where it entirely depends on the level of the vibration of your consciousness, and whatever frequency your consciousness is vibrating in, it will be aligned with the appropriate loka for that particular frequency. That is how it is, and that is how your mind will also get influenced by the characteristics of it. And how the process of this influence, how does it work and all that, we'll discuss this in the Siddhacharam video, where you will understand the true science behind the samskaras and how they influence you and how they will affect you and all that. But for now, I'll just like describe about the characteristics and then leave it there. So the next one is the Sutala Loka. So this is the loka where the asuras, like whoever are populated, whoever are being in this loka, are generally considered to be asuric in nature, right? So the main tendencies of asuras are like whatever the devas are saying, they're completely opposite. Like they're quite opposite to whatever the devas say, and whatever rituals or anything that is associated with the deva worship it might be the yagnas or havans or anything like that. You might be listening about stories of a lot of danavas even in Ramayana and Mahabharata, where certain rituals like homas and havans are taking place. Instead of putting in ghee and everything, they used to disrupt all these havans by putting in flesh and blood and things like that. So people who are completely opposite to the sattvic tendencies mostly are asuric in nature, and they are primarily in the Sutala Loka. That is how the characteristics of the being in that Loka will be. And the next one is the Talātala Loka. So this can also be called as the Loka of the illusion. The main characteristic of this Loka is like it is created or it is the abode of the Danava called Mayasura. He's called as Mayasura. You might have heard about this name in the Mahabharatam, where the Pandavas will seek the help of Mayasura in constructing a structure with all these kinds of illusions, and that will lead to some consequences afterward that will lead to the Mahabharata war itself. So illusion is the main characteristic inside this Loka, and no matter how much materialistically prosperous people here are, they won't be able to progress in their spiritual endeavors, or they won't even be able to uplift themselves spiritually because of that illusion factor that is there, and that is very profoundly seen in this particular Loka. And the next one is the Mahātala Loka. So the main characteristic of this Loka is like people, they are not in control. Like, instead of saying people, I'll just say the beings who are in this Loka are they're not in control of their emotions or their desires, right? They don't even consider whether pursuing those things are right or wrong, right? They don't think about the consequence of anything that they are doing, and that is how the nature of these beings that are there in this Loka are. They're like always furious and anxious, like they are driven by that anger, and like I mentioned, they are only focused on the desires and the temptations that basically are consequences of the desires and emotions, right? So they are driven by the anger and temptations. That is the main characteristic of the beings in this Loka. And after this is the Rasātala Loka. This is the Loka where the utmost cruel beings or asuras, the cruelest of the asuras or beings that you can see are dwelling in this particular Loka. And just like the other asuras, they are also on the opposing side of the gods. But here in Mahātala Loka, people don't have control on their emotions and desires or anger, right? But here in this particular Loka, the beings, they don't have control over anything that they are doing. They are like they don't even know their state, and they don't even know the kind of things that they are doing in this particular Loka. And thinking about right or wrong is like it doesn't even cross their mind in this particular Loka. Like you can see a lot of serpents with like 1,000 hoods or 2,000 hoods that are dwelling in this particular Loka, and along with those asuras. And excuse me. And after this is the last one is the Pātāla Loka. Pātāla Loka is the epitome of the lack of awareness. This is the least possible state of awareness that any being can exist, and it is completely driven by the darkness. Like beings that are in this Loka are like completely unaware of themselves. They are not even they don't even recognize their existence, like and the kind of things that they are doing. They're completely driven by the intention of the Shadripus that I was talking about. Those are prominently the ones that will be driving the people here, and it is just that it's like beings that are there or that are there in this Loka are like possessed by those Shadripus, and that is the reason why they won't even be able to know what is being happening with them or what they have done or anything like that. That is how the Pātāla Loka is, and this Loka is ruled by the serpent Vāsuki. Vāsuki here is the king of the Nagas or the serpents, right? And he's coiled around the Shiva's neck. There is also this sloka from one of the Shiva Panchaksharis where it says Vahanam Vrishabho Yasya Vāsuki Kantabhushanam. So he's the Kantabhushanam of the Shiva himself. Like he's coiled around his neck 3 times, which represents the time, like past, present and future. And it indicates that Shiva is beyond time, or he transcends time, right? And Vāsuki himself represents supreme control over ego, fearlessness, and the primal instincts that are there in the being, right? It represents that the control of all of these elements that are there in every single being. And Vāsuki is also like the Kundalini Shakti that is inside every being is also represented as a 3-coiled serpent as well, which also indicates the past, present and future, but only for that particular being, right? And once you start raising up your Kundalini energy, once you start lifting your energy, that's where you will eventually reach the Sahasrara, and then you will dissolve in the Brahman. And and the Nagamani that is also there on the top of head of Vāsuki, it also symbolizes knowledge, and it represents that there is still chance for every single being to even rise from the Pātāla Loka as well, to uplift themselves. But one thing I'd like to mention is, in any of these lokas, no matter in whichever lower dimension this is, there is always a scope for development for any kind of being that are dwelling in these 7 lower lokas. There is always a scope of enlightenment, and there are also Adhisthana Devatas. That means the Devatas presiding over these lokas, that they have control on these particular lokas, that will help souls that are stuck in this loka, maybe because of their karmas or anything like that. And once that is done and they'll have to move on, these deities are the ones that will help them to progress from that particular loka and ascend upwards. That is about the lower 7 lokas. At any given point of time, a consciousness of a human being will keep oscillating in between the 14 lokas, the 7 up and 7 down. So when I was talking about going inward and trying to associate these 14 lokas within ourselves, like the macrocosm or the Brahmand is comprised of these 14 lokas. Like whichever Brahmand you take, these 14 lokas are present in that Brahmand, right? And that is called the macrocosm. And this human body that we are in right now is called the microcosm or the Pindam. This is called the Pindandam, and that is called the Brahmandam. You might have heard about this term called Anda Pinda Brahmandas, right? Anda is the source of the creation, from where the life or the beings are originated from. And once they are originated, once they are separated from that cosmic source of existence or the super consciousness that we can say, they are considered as the Pindandam or the Pindam, where this is also referred to as the Pindandam because this is the microcosm and it is a representation of the outer macrocosm. That is what the Siddha Philosophy will teach us about, and that is and Siddha Philosophy will also guide us as to how we can associate these two things and then harmonize the macrocosm and microcosm and ascend in the spiritual path. So like I said, at any given point of time, a human being's consciousness will keep oscillating in between these 14 lokas, the 7 up and 7 below. So let's discuss about the 7 lokas that are above. And Bhuloka is the plane that we are in right now. The main characteristic of this loka is also illusion or Maya, but here the Maya is confined to the physical plane or the elements that exist in this particular plane, like the 5 elements, the Panchakarmendriyas, Panchagnanendriyas, like this Indriyas, right? And the elements that exist outside, like materialistic world, like people running about for money, sensual pleasures and all that. These kinds of illusions will always exist in this plane, and that is how this plane will influence the people that are being here. But this is also a transformative plane, like it's a transitional plane, right? And the other main characteristic of this plane is such that the kind of sadhana that you can do here and the kind of results that you can achieve in this particular plane are very much better than compared with the any other higher realms. Like that is the reason why you see a lot of people descending, lot of beings, like in our ancient scriptures, either in Mahabharata or Ramayana, you see people descending from the higher planes to here, taking a Manusha Janma or like a human form, and then being here and getting themselves involved in tapasya and sadhana, because the rate at which you receive result for your sadhana in this particular plane is much more higher than the time it takes for the beings in the other planes. And that is the reason why this is called as a transitional plane, where you are in the state where you have an opportunity to go ascend onto the higher planes, but at the same time you also have the opportunity to, not opportunity, you will also have the effect or consequence. I think consequence is the proper word, where you will have to face the consequence and descend downwards into the lower planes as well. And that is the reason why this is the transitional plane. And above this is the Bhuvar Loka. The main the beings that are there in this Loka are Gandharvas, Yakshas, Kinnaras, Kimpurushas and all these, right? And the main characteristic of this plane is like they have the abilities to pursue fine arts. Like Gandharvas are very much known for their fine art capabilities. Like you see people who can actually sing very nicely. People often refer to them as being Gandharvas, or their voice being the voice of the Gandharvas, right? That is the characteristics they possess. And Kinnaras are very much into the dancing art, right? So they have these certain qualities, but they are not on par with the Devatas. They are just a level below the Devatas and a level higher above the human beings. And in any of these lokas, like the 7 below and 7 up, they are all influenced by the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. These 3 gunas are always there in all the beings that are there in this loka, except for the Satya Loka, where they'll go beyond the 3 gunas in that when they are in that state of frequency. But apart from that, people are always influenced by the 3 gunas. For example, all the lokas that are downward, right, they are majorly influenced by tamasic. Like the more lower you go, the higher the tamasic energy in them. Sattva is almost very negligible for the beings that are there in the lower lokas. It's predominantly tamasic and rajasic. Whereas the people who are in the higher 7 or higher 6 up, excluding the Bhuloka, they are majorly influenced by the Sattva gunas. And the higher you go, it will always become, tamasic will almost be non-existential. It will still be there, but it will almost be non-existential. That is how the characteristics of the gunas are, like the flow of the gunas, right? So in after Bhuvar Loka is the Suvar Loka, where the Devatas that are there. So there is this concept called as the 33 Koti Devatas that we have in our ancient scriptures, right? People often think that they are 330 million or 33 crores. When they hear the term Koti, they refer to it as crores. But there have been some texts where they were talking about this particular concept in detail, where in Sanskrit, Koti means a group. So if you translate that 33 Koti, it becomes a group of 33 Devatas, right? So, and if you, they are also given the number, perfect number associated with that 33. So there are Dvadasha Adityas, the 12 Adityas. There are Ekadasha Rudras, the 11 Rudras. And then there are Ashta Vasus. And then after that there are 2 Ashwini Devatas. So all these 4 categories constitutes, the number constitutes to 33. This is one aspect of it. but people believe that there are also and the thing is, like, there is a lot of difference between deities and devatas as well. We'll talk about this much detail in some other videos, but for now I'll just plainly state that deities are different and devatas are different. And from this plane, the Suvar Loka, from this Suvar plane, the beings who are there here are very much disassociated with the emotional aspects, like the worldly aspects or the connection to the physical elements or the things that will influence them to get pulled downwards, right? Like the Shadripus or whatever that we were talking about, that will influence the people that are there in the Bhuloka, right? So that kind of effect is almost non-existent from this particular plane. Once you cross this plane, it will be much more easier for a being to spiritually ascend. That is the main characteristic of this loka, and in this loka is the king of the devatas, the Indra, right? And Indra is like a position, so whoever is in that position will be considered as the Indra. So that is the main that is the main characteristic of this particular plane. And then there are also apsaras in this realm as well, along with the devatas. So after this comes the Mahar Loka. Mahar Loka is the loka where a being will achieve once they are spiritually enlightened. But this enlightenment doesn't mean that they have completely realized the true nature of the existence and they have realized the Brahma Tattvam or merged with the Brahman. No, it's not that, but they are much more above the average spiritual seekers. The state at which the consciousness of the beings in this plane is like on a very high level, right? Usually this particular loka is populated by a lot of rishis and maharshis, rajarshis. All of these people will exist in this loka, and Markandeya Maharshi is known to be existent in this particular plane, the Mahar Loka. After this comes the Jana Loka. Jana Loka is the loka where beings here almost achieve the God conscious state. Some examples of being in this particular plane are like Narada and Tumbura, right? These are very divine beings and highly spiritual, and you might have heard about Narada, the sage Narada, in many scriptures like Mahabharatam, Bhagavatam, Ramayana, where he has been the one who has initiated people into a lot of sadhanas. Like for example, Valmiki Maharshi, when he was about to write Ramayanam, he will ask the Narada Maharshi to give him the story of a person who contains all the 16 qualities that should be there for a human being, right? And which is Lord Rama. So he'll ask Narada, sage Narada, about this, and sage Narada has a very important significance in our ancient history. Like, he has been an instrument where a lot of divine things have taken place because of his actions. And the other misconception is, like, most of the filmography that has been done in this country will portray Narada as being like cunning and mischievous and always, trying to make people quarrel or clash between each other, and that is entirely wrong and a complete misinterpretation of what the sage is. He's always in the Ananda state, and he's always in the state of praising Vishnu and always thinking about Vishnu himself. And that is the state that beings in that Jana Loka are always in. They are in that almost God conscious state. And Narada Maharshi is one of the sages who has initiated a lot of rishis into tapasya and all kinds of sadhana as well. Like, Prahalada is the one also initiated by Narada Maharshi when he was in the womb. So just by knowing about, the reason why I'm telling about this is, like, if you know the significance of Narada Maharshi, who is a resident of this Jana Loka, you can understand the gravity, or like you can understand the state of existence that this Loka carries, or this Loka vibrates at, right? And it is not easy to traverse these lokas. It'll just look like a step, like step 1 and step 2 and 3, but it doesn't work like that. You'll have to work a lot for you to even ascend from one plane to another. And after this comes the Tapa Loka. This Loka is almost the highest states of spiritual enlightenment, you can say. This is the Loka that is just adjacent to the Satya Loka, where in Tapa Loka, people or beings that are there are always involved in intense spiritual activities and intense spiritual tapasyas. For example, if you consider a lot of people in our ancient scriptures who have done intense tapasya or sadhana. For example, Vishwamitra Maharshi, who has given us the Gayatri Mantram, right? He was the one who has seen the Gayatri Mantram and gave the Gayatri Mantram to the world. He involved himself in intense sadhana for about 10,000 years. He went to all 4 directions. His goal was to become a Brahmarshi, to know the Brahma Tattvam itself. For whatever reason, that is a very different aspect, but becoming a Brahmarshi was his goal, and for that he got himself involved in intense tapasya. So people who do that kind of tapasya will make their consciousness vibrate in that particular state, where it will take them to the Tapoloka. For example, if a person who is like in that tapasya, and then if they have to leave their body, they'll directly go to that loka. That is the state of vibration that that Loka carries, and it is not easy. It is not simple at all, and I don't think we can do that kind of tapasya in the present Kali Yuga. Like maybe in Kruta Yuga or the Satya Yuga, where people have been much more dharmic and spiritual seekers have had that opportunity to go into that kind of deep tapasya in those yugas, but I don't think it is possible in this yuga. But there are a lot of other ways for people to get enlightened and still merge with the Brahman in the Kali Yuga as well. And after the Tapoloka comes the Satya Loka. This is the Loka where beings are always involved in the Brahma sadhana. Like they are always thinking or contemplating about the universal consciousness, the Brahman it is. When I say Brahman, I'm not talking about the Chaturmukha Brahma, the God. No, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking, when I say Brahman, I'm talking about the universal consciousness. Like the beings who are here are like that. They are always indulged in seeking the true essence of the Brahman, always talking about the Brahman. For example, the Sanat Kumaras, they are the Brahma Manasa Putras, right? So those are Sanat Kumaras are told to be residing in this Satya Loka, and these are the 14 lokas, right? So this constitutes a universe. And when I say Brahman is beyond all these things. Like all these 14 lokas are the macrocosm, but when we go beyond this macrocosm, when we go beyond this universe, is when we'll know about the Brahman. That is what Brahman is. And only when you traverse these 14 lokas, you will be free from the influence of the 3 gunas, the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And that is what the characteristic of the Brahman is. The Brahman is Nirakara. It doesn't have a form. And it is nirguna. It is not influenced by any of the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, right? It is always in that Satchidananda state, always in the state of pure bliss and pure existence. So that is brief description of the beings and the characteristics of the 14 lokas. And only when we go beyond these 14 lokas, we'll be able to merge with the Brahman, or we'll be able to merge with that super consciousness and realize the essence of it, right? But when any being that is still confined to these 14 lokas, they are always confined to the gunas aspect, either sattva gunam or either rajasic gunam or either tamasic. As long as we are under the influence of these 3 gunas, there is always a chance for a spiritual seeker to fall down. Like no matter in which loka you are, unless and until you reach the Brahman, unless and until you merge with the Brahman, there is always a chance for people to fall down. For example, in Mahabharata, there is the story of a couple where they have intense bhakti on the Shiva, and they dedicate their life completely without any wavering or without any distraction to the worship of Shiva, and they eventually leave their bodies, right? And because of that, they'll reach the Shiva Loka, and which is the abode of Shiva, right? But what happens is one day they get influenced by one of those emotions or desires. One of those people, not one of those, both of those people will get influenced by this kamam or a desire. So what happens is like they get dropped from that loka and they get sent to the bhuloka again for them to do certain kind of sadhana to clear off that samskara that basically cause them to feel that kind of temptation in them, right? So only if there is a certain kind of samskara, then you are prone to these kind of desires or activities and stuff like that, right? And that is the reason why it is very important for all of us to clear our karmas. And karmas are usually driven by our samskaras. Samskaras are usually, it's basically the collective consciousness of your previous lifetimes or janmas. Over the course of how many lifetimes your soul takes, it accumulates certain kind of memories or thoughts, right? So those will still come back with you. And they are still incorporated inside your body, and they will still influence you unless and until you clear them. And that is very important, and that is the reason why we should not escape our duties, or we should not try to escape our karmas. It won't help us in any way. Just like the story I've mentioned, you will have to come back to the bhuloka, you will have to finish that karma, and only then you will be able to ascend. And universe will make sure that that will happen. So it is better for us to finish off whatever we have, and always think about the God, and always surrender to that higher consciousness, and then just say that whatever I'm going through, it is for my own good, and it is for my spiritual enlightenment eventually. That is how we should lead our life, and that is how we should also be in our spiritual path as well. A spark of ego that generates inside a seeker will put them like multiple lifetimes back in their sadhana. That is the effect of the ego as well. That's how grounded we should be, and that's how we always surrender ourselves to that higher state of consciousness and the Brahman, and then just continue on our path, right? That's it for today. Thank you. Namah Shivaya. For those of you who are watching our videos, and if you'd like to know more about certain topics, or if you have any questions about the topics, or if you want us to talk about certain things that have not been discussed here, you can always leave them in the comment section, and then we'll bring it up to you. And for those who are interested in pursuing this path, or if you are interested to meet our Guru, Sri Shivananda, you can contact us through the email provided in the description. Thank you. Namah Shivaya.